Hello everyone, my name's Griffiths Atungulu. I'm the director of the Arkansas Rice Processing Program. I'm an associate professor and agricultural engineer with an area of expertise in grain processing and post-harvest systems engineering with the Department of Food Science at the University of Arkansas System, Division of Agriculture. In this module 1, I want to give you an outline of some of the things that we are going to cover. First, we are going to look at the basics of rice crop and rice kernel. I'll give an overview of rice production, and then I'll talk to you about rice classification. We'll discuss some of the growth structure and composition of rice, and then we'll look at rice chemical compositions. And so to begin with, I want to give you an overview of the rice production steps in the U.S. The diagram here is to help me illustrate the circularity of rice production within the U.S. rice production systems. In a nutshell, this diagram illustrates materials or inputs, operations, products, and byproducts that are involved in the production and processing of rice. And to begin with, materials, of course, we need land and soil to be able to produce rice. We need energy in the form of fuel, labor, and power, and we also need machinery. We need water, then we need rice seeds that are viable, and then we need fertilizer and pesticide to control any form of microorganism or pests. And so starting with the land or the soil, the first step, of course, is to conduct land preparation, and following that we need crop establishment, where we supply seeds that are viable and water, and then do some crop care. And of course, if we do some good crop care, we end up harvesting rice or paddy rice. During harvesting operations, byproducts like straw are generated, while paddy goes through post-harvest processing and handling. The rice straw, which is generated during the harvesting operation, presents a little bit of a challenge for most of our growers. In general, it can be incorporated back into the soil as a soil amendment. The drawback, however, is that the rice straw does not easily decompose in the soil. So some growers like to burn it, and of course, when you do that, it presents kind of an environmental issue. Other growers, therefore, end up removing the rice straw from the field and use it off-field for different applications, for example, to support mushroom production or in the bioenergy sector. Next, I would like to describe growth structure of rice kernel. And this diagram here helps me illustrate some of the portions or the parts that are in the rice kernel. First, I want to describe them starting from the outermost part all the way into the rice kernel. First, we have the rice husk. And that rice husk pretty much does a protective job of that rice kernel, and it comprises only 20% of the rice kernel by weight. We then have the rice bran, which is the layer just beneath the rice husk, and that comprises about 8% of the gross weight of the rice kernel. And the rice bran comprises of the pericarp and the alaurin layer. Then we have the whitey part of that rice kernel, which is the endosperm, in other words. It is the starchy part that most of us like to consume. By weight, it forms about 70% of that rice kernel. And the last part, and the smallest portion of that rice kernel, is the germ. And the germ comprises about 2% of the gross weight. In this slide, I want to go step by step to kind of explain what is in each of these parts of the rice from a composition standpoint. Starting with the bran, you see we have a lot of fiber, we have some vitamin, we have minerals, and then we have some phytonutrients. The endosperm is that starchy part. It has carbohydrate and it has protein dispersed within it. Then we have the germ, which is rich in essential fatty acids, vitamin E, the B vitamins, minerals, and the phytonutrients. Now, there are different types of rice around the world. But broadly speaking, we can classify this rice into 4 major parts. First, we have the indica type of rice, which are pretty much grown in the tropical and subtropical region, such as Southeast Asia and South Asia. The indica rice makes about 75% of the global rice trade. The second category is the aromatic rice, which comprises the jasmine rice and the basmati rice. These are primarily grown in Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, India, and Pakistan. The aromatic type of rice comprises about 16 to 18% of the global rice trade. The third type is the japonica rice, which is grown in regions with cooler climates such as Japan, Korea, parts of China, California, Europe, and Australia. The japonica rice forms about 5 to 6% of the global rice trade. Then lastly, the fourth group are the glutinous type of rice and other specialty type of rice. These are grown in Southeast Asia, and they comprise approximately 2 to 3% of the global rice trade. Next, I want to move into various classifications of rice based on the degree of milling or rice fractions. We have 3 classifications. We have rough rice, we have whole grain rice or brown rice, and then we have white or milled rice. And I want to go ahead and describe what each of these type of rice means. So the rough rice is completely unprocessed rice. As you can imagine, it still has the husk on it. It has the endosperm inside there. It has the germ inside there. So it includes the hard fibrous hull and is indigestible in this form. So we can't consume it in that form. The whole grain rice, on the other hand, is rough rice after removing the hull and leaving the brown layer intact, and it's 100% whole grain. It contains the bran, the endosperm, and the germ. White rice, on the other hand, is the kernel after removing the husk and the bran layer and the germ. And so primarily in the market, this is the kind of rice that you will see marketed as milled rice or white rice. I want to continue describing rice, but in this case, classifying them based on the kernel size. We have 3 major classifications in this category. We have the long grain rice, we have the medium grain rice, and then we have the short grain rice. The long grain rice has long, slender kernel, 3 to 4 times longer than its width, and 6 to 8 millimeters long, and due to its starchy composition, the cooked grain are lighter, they are fluffier, they are more separated than medium grain or short grain rice counterparts. The long grain rice is primarily grown in Arkansas. However, you may find some proportions of it in parts of California, Florida, Louisiana, Mississippi, Missouri, and even Texas. The medium grain rice are shorter, wider kernels than the long grain rice. They are 2 to 3 times longer than their width, and the kernels are 5 to 6 millimeters long when cooked. They tend to cling together when cooked. They're ideal for dishes with creamy consistency. Majority of medium grain rice is grown in California, but you can find some of that in parts of Arkansas, Louisiana, Missouri, and Texas. Then we have the last type in this category, the short grain rice. These are short, they are plump, they are almost round, about 4 to 5 millimeters long. When they are cooked, they are often soft, stickier than other varieties, and they have some slight springiness, when you bite them. Like medium grain, they are ideal for dishes with creamy consistency. These are not grown in large proportion in the US, but it is possible to get some of them planted in Arkansas as well as in California. I want to go through the next set of slides describing to you what we call the specialty and aromatic type of rice. The aroma of this type of rice is typically attributed to a much higher proportion of some specific chemical that are naturally occurring in these rices. The first category I want to describe is the US jasmine, which is an aromatic long-grain rice with a 3:1 length-to-width ratio. It has a distinct flavor. The jasmine type of popcorn aroma is attributed to a much higher proportion of a naturally occurring compound in this particular type of rice. Cooked jasmine are often soft, they are moist, they cling together. Because of that characteristic, they form a major ingredient of Thai cuisine and can also be swapped for any recipe that is looking for long-grain rice. In terms of growing location, they can be grown in Arkansas, California, Louisiana, Missouri, and Texas. Next, I want to describe the US basmati, which is an aromatic long-grain rice with its own distinct aroma and flavor. It has a 3:1 to 4:1 length-to-width ratio, and while cooking, the grains become longer and they don't get wider. The cooked grains are long, they are separate, they are fluffy, and have a savory, nutty flavor, and are slightly chewy. The basmati rice is often used in India and Mediterranean dishes and can be swapped for any menu that is calling for long-grain rice. Again, from a growing location standpoint, some of these can be found in Arkansas, California, Louisiana, as well as Texas. Then we have the US arborio rice. The US arborio rice is a medium grain rice with a characteristic white dot at the center of the grain, almost like a chalky center there. And they have a higher proportion of protein than other medium grain counterparts. Primarily, these are used in risotto and desserts. They develop a very creamy texture and has an exceptional ability to absorb flavors. From a growing location standpoint, this type of rices can grow in some parts of Arkansas, California, Louisiana, Missouri, as well as Texas. And then I want to describe to you red rice, and these are aromatic rice, which are long grain variety. They have a deep colored honey red brown and is 100% whole grain. The cooked grain has a savory, nutty flavor and are slightly chewy. The red rice is perfect for salads, pilaf, soups, and side dishes. Primarily, they are grown in California. We have the Japonica rice, which is also aromatic in characteristic. These are medium grain variety with a dark black brown that is 100% whole grain. Their cooked grains are slightly chewy with a subtle sweet spiciness. They are ideal for porridges, desserts, and some traditional Chinese dishes utilize them. They can be grown in California as well. Next, we have the sweet rice, also known as the glutinous or sticky rice. This is predominantly a short grain variety that is chalky, white, with a short and plump grains. The cooked grain sticks together due to their glutinous consistency and are commonly used in Japanese and Thai dishes. The sweet rice is ideal for sweet and savory dishes and can be used as a thickener in soup, sauce, gravy, and pudding. The sweet rice can also be grown in California as well. Last of this specialty and aromatic rice is the wild rice. The wild rice are long, slender, dark brown, The cooked grain has a creamy colored interior with a nutty consistency. They have a nutty flavor. They are chewy in texture. The wild rice is perfect for mixing with white or brown rice and ideal for stuffing, for salad and soups, and for adding color and texture to breads and desserts. They can be grown in places like California, Idaho, Minnesota, Oregon, and Wisconsin. I would like to end this module by saying thank you very much for listening, and I want to hope that we continue developing more knowledge in the next set of modules as we go along. Thank you.